Welcome to the Heart for God podcast. With many years of experience pastoring and helping to start churches, Dr. Jim Townsley has some practical and biblical advice that can be a great help to you and your ministry. On this podcast, Dr. Townsley and other guests with special expertise cover a variety of topics. His goal is to help you lead your church to be a healthy, strong, and balanced ministry, and for your family to be happy, healthy, and living for the Lord.
Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to be doing something over the next few weeks about preachers that I have known, people I personally have met, some maybe good friends, but certainly a great example to me. I think sometimes people become very judgmental of anyone in the ministry or various churches because there's an incident, someone messed up, failed. I mean, that happens in all of life. There is a real devil. We are in a spiritual battle, and, I know preachers who have made some mistakes and failed, and some of them very seriously, but the vast majority, especially people I've known, have just been such a great example and so faithful to the Lord, and I just want to share some of those. The first one is well known. The ones that will follow are much lesser known, and there's so many out there in the ministry that just don't have the notoriety of some headliner, a speaker that's all over the country, not in the periodicals and so on. But there are many, many good, godly, faithful men. I remember Dr. Tom Malone once stating how we don't really know who the great preachers are. It may not be someone in a big city church. It could be a man of God at a country crossroad. He's never missed the mark and been faithful for his whole life. And boy, I think that is true. There's some great, great Christians out there. And I've got hundreds of them in my phone that I can call friends, and don't always spend a lot of time with them, but still consider them friends and appreciate their influence in my life and through their ministry. So the first person is pretty well known. That was the one who baptized me and trained me at Tennessee Temple when I went to college in 1972. I left in 75. In 3 years, it literally changed my life. I was saved under the preaching of evangelist Dolphus Price. He led me to the Lord. I met him at the front of an altar call and a Bible conference. That evening, Dr. Robertson baptized me, and it was there that I received my training. We had Dr. Robertson at our church a number of times, and it was always such an honor and such a blessing to have him with us. And he was a very private individual, he and his wife both, but by just being in the ministry and seeing how he operated, hearing the sermons, things he had to say, it was just a powerful influence on my life. Dr. Robertson has been gone now for quite a while. He actually lived 93 years, and it's hard to believe that he's gone. But 2007 is when he passed away. I did attend the funeral, which was filled with all these other people, literally thousands of people that he influenced that attended the funeral, let alone those that could not have made it to the funeral. He was born a very humble beginning in English, Indiana. He spent his first 2 years on a farm there, and his dad moved to Louisville, Kentucky, and it was there that he was invited to Sunday school. And a dear lady, and I heard him give the illustration many times about Daisy Hawes, a Sunday school teacher, led him to the Lord. And he had a good education. He went to a couple of different high schools, played football. He graduated. He entered Old Bethel College in Russellville, Kentucky. He did various jobs, washing dishes, scrubbing floors to pay his way through college. And then he went to the University of Louisville and that's where he completed his work with a major in history. But he continued his education at Southern Baptist Seminary in Louisville and actually studied under the Dr. A.T. Robertson, a Greek scholar. And at the age of 19, he was called by a church in Jeffersontown, Kentucky, but he didn't accept. He was actually a singer in his early years. He studied at Cincinnati Conservatory of Music, and he had a trained voice and a strong voice. He also studied under John Samples at the Conservatory of Music, and he was very well known at that time. He also worked and served as a soloist on the staff of a radio station there in Louisville, and also in Nashville, Tennessee. And he was offered a contract actually to sing, and he refused it because he had come to a place where he felt God wanted him in the ministry as a pastor or somehow preaching. So he served as a pastor in Germantown, Tennessee. Then he was called to Greenbrier, Tennessee, just small country churches. And, of course, these were Southern Baptist churches. And there he began talking about the second coming of Christ, which was a theme we heard often through his preaching. And then he was an evangelist and served through the Birmingham Baptist Association. He conducted 50 revivals, and these were not 3-day, 4-day revivals. These were week or 2-week long revivals. And in the first 2 years, he held these 50-some revivals. But after that, he turned down the opportunity to be a state evangelist. But after 5 years with the Fairfield Church, he was called to Highland Park Baptist Church. And that was 1942. And, of course, that really changed a lot of things. And it was Tennessee Temple College and Zion College. And then they added the Theological Seminary, which ultimately they called Temple Baptist Seminary. That was in 1954. The reason he started the college, he'd only been there 4 years at Highland Park, but he saw the need to plant churches all over that Chattanooga area and that part of Tennessee. So he sent his deacons out to pastor these churches. And after a while, they came back. They said, Dr. Robertson, we don't know how to preach. We don't know how to pastor a church. And he said, well, we'll train you. And that was how they started Tennessee Temple College, ultimately Tennessee Temple University. And, of course, he pastored there, I think, till 1983. And then he continued preaching almost till the very end of his life. He was in his 90s, and I heard him preach, and it's amazing. He sounded just like he did when I was there at college. Certainly an amazing man, amazing memory, but he did have dementia toward the end, and that limited what he was able to do. But there are a lot of unique things about him that I felt were a great help to me while I was there at college. First of all, he was pretty simple. He kept things very simple. The local church was what was important. He didn't look for fanfare. I don't think he ever saw his church and ministry as big. And while I was there, the auditorium, I'm not sure how many people would seat Chauncey Good Auditorium, but it was packed. It was chairs up in the aisles, and so I'm sure it was over 2,000, 2,500 people. And they're probably only supposed to hold 1,500, but it was always packed. And then they had the original church of Highland Park. They called it the Chapel, Phillips Chapel. They had services there. And then they had another chapel building they bought called Sharp, and then they started using the gymnasium. So they couldn't hold all the people. Now, a lot of it was through the influence of the college, the students, their family, the faculty, maintenance people, but it was a foundational ministry for those seeking training because he kept repeating the basic things. Have faith in God, Don't go to the left or right, straight down the line. These were common statements over and over again. In his sermons, you could almost give the outline. You just didn't have the title and the text. Salvation, separation, second coming, service, soul winning, missions. Those were over and over again. We kept hearing how important those things were. And he liked to have big days, and there's always something that they were doing, big day, something planned to invite people to come. And they had these chapels, and they had, one time at least 70, and probably more than that. But pastors, young men in college, would go out and pastor these chapels while they are still getting their training. It was an amazing opportunity, a hands-on approach. So it was a great opportunity. And, of course, they had the bus ministry, which I worked in the bus ministry while I was there. And then they had the mission downtown, the gospel mission. I went there a few times and preached. Some of the faculty preached there. Dr. Robertson preached there. Then they had Camp Joy, which was founded as a result of the death of his child. He was only 2 months old, I believe. And I think it was crib death, just devastated him, his wife. But from that, he changed his life verse that we know all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. And so they established Camp Joy and did not charge any kind of fees whatsoever. They came totally free. Literally hundreds and thousands of young people were saved and influenced through that camp. And of course, their mission program, they always gave over 50%, it was something like 58% of all the money came in, went out to missions. And a great believer in mission work, church planting, but especially foreign missions. They had a huge missions conference every year. For me, it was the highlight of the year. They had a revival meeting, they had a Bible conference, and they had the missions conference. But of those three, the missions conference was the one I enjoyed the most, and to be exposed to all these different people from all over the world. So he had a great burden for missions. And Dr. Robertson had, as I said, simple sermons, but he had amazing illustrations, and most of them were personal illustrations. But he came up with amazing illustrations to illustrate truth in the Word of God. There were times where, I remember when I was there, that there was this man that came, he wanted to establish a TV ministry, and Dr. Robertson refused. He didn't want that. As a young Christian, I thought, oh yeah, that would be great, people should see. But he had his reasons. He didn't want it to conflict with the structure of their church services. And they had great music. And the music at Highland Park, the volume was so great, you could sing at the top of your lungs and not hear yourself. You're drowned out by all the voices. It was rather amazing. One of the things that he did, and he did this purposely, they had carpet, a low-pile red carpet in the aisles, but under all the pews, and the pews were all wood, was just sealed concrete. That's all it was, sealed concrete. But his philosophy was, that's going to help the congregational singing. And boy, it certainly did. But the music was traditional, but evangelistic and lively. Certainly a great asset, a great ministry to the deaf and training deaf people. So Dr. Robertson was an unusual man, and no one is perfect. We all have our shortcomings. But it seemed even as he grew older, he was so distinguished and had such grace, showed kindness to people, and cared about people, and he cared about souls. But he also wanted to see things happen. He wanted to see the church grow. He wanted to have a greater work for God, and always pushing forward by faith. I know at the end of his life, a preacher friend of mine asked him, Dr. Robertson, if you had this all to do over again, would there be something you would change or something you would do And his reply kind of surprised me. He said, I would have more faith. Here I would say, here's a man of such great faith that was a testimony of his life. Everything he did was by faith, and yet he felt like that was one thing he could have done more to have greater faith. So we did have him at our church a number of times. He was always very gracious and kind, not demanding, and people responded to his preaching. It was a powerful preacher and distinguished ministry. So today, Townsley Temple does not exist. The transition was not a positive one, so it's unfortunate. But I meet people all over, and in fact, think that the influence we have in the churches we've started are a continuation of the influence that he had. And that's true all over the world, not just churches in America, but literally all over the world. That work goes on. That mother church does not exist. The college does not exist. However, the influence of what they did for those years goes all over the world, and it's gone from generation to generation. Again, there's no preacher that's perfect, but I hold in great respect those who've been pioneers, those that have paved the way before us. And I believe that I heard this statement that he was the granddaddy of the large independent fundamental churches, to take a stand against some of the compromise of the Southern Baptist Convention that he felt was occurring, and just said, well, I'm going to do what I believe is right, and he stood on his convictions. So I couldn't have greater respect for anyone than I would for Dr. Robertson. He just had such a great influence in my life, and I'll never be a Dr. Robertson, and nor would I desire to be. He was one of a kind. He was unique, but his influence I so greatly appreciate. So maybe that gives you a little more insight into Dr. Robertson that you might not be aware of, you might not know, but we're going to talk about some people that are lesser known. So we'll continue this next week. But thanks so much for listening today. God bless.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, consider sharing it with a friend. You can also follow at Dr. Townsley on Twitter or on Facebook at Jim Townsley.